Welcome to the 2022 United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce Legislative Summit, America's Business Future Breakfast. Share your USHCC Legislative Summit memorable moments on our Twitter and Instagram live feed, brought to you by T-Mobile. Be sure to tag your social media posts using the hashtags USHCC Legislative, USHCC, and T-Mobile Business. Our meal service has begun, and our live streaming program will commence in 20 minutes. Buen provecho! Good morning, honored guests and esteemed colleagues. Welcome to the 2022 United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce Legislative Summit, America's Business Future Breakfast. Our program will begin in 3 minutes. Please silence your mobile devices at this time. Our program will begin in 3 minutes. Thank you. Distinguidos miembros y colegas, bienvenidos. Welcome to the 2022 USHCC Legislative Summit, America's Business Future Breakfast. At this time, please rise for our national anthem, being sung by young and talented vocalist and the local gem, Beverly Perez.
Oh, and you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
You may be seated. Thank you, Ms. Perez, for that beautiful rendition. We're now pleased to share these messages from our esteemed USHCC corporate partners.
Using hand sanitizer before touchline was a very unpleasant experience. So I wanted to create a solution that people really enjoyed using. When COVID started, we saw a big growth in sales. We were already using almost all the Google products. So what we basically did is utilize them 10 times more. It would have been extremely painful to grow without everything that Google has been offering us. I want to wake up every day being motivated that I'm doing something that is going to change people's life. I think there's not better feeling as an entrepreneur.
Colleagues and friends, members and distinguished guests, working to grow America's economy by supporting small, minority, and women-owned businesses for more than 3 decades, he has been a leading Latino voice on entrepreneurship, small business growth, trade and commerce, an expert in economic development, featured for his leadership and work in Fortune, Forbes, Time, Newsweek, CNN, The Associated Press, The Economist, The Washington Post, The Hill, and many others. Please give a warm welcome to your United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce President and CEO, Ramiro Cavazos.
Buenos días. Good morning. Buenos días. Eso, órale. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Washington, D.C. Welcome to the 2022 United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce Legislative Summit. The first time we meet in 3 years. Welcome. It's great. It's great to see so many familiar faces, friends, colleagues, our board members, and of course, chamber leaders in person. It's special to be here today. It was 2019, the last time we met. As we move beyond the pandemic and into what we hope and will work hard towards creating will be a time of more prosperity and a time of peace. We all want that. And I extend my gratitude to every one of you that made the trip, who's joining us today, but also all of you that joined us to reaffirm the future goes through us by joining us at the national conference in Las Vegas last fall. Who attended that conference last? Gracias. Thank you. As they say here, you were the tip of the spear. You said, we're going to meet and we're going to show the way forward, and we thank you. Today, I welcome you all to the home of our national headquarters. We are based in Washington, D.C., and as we move forward and build on our joint momentum and the combined efforts by all of us to strengthen and advocate for an American economy that serves to support our Hispanic businesses at more equitable levels. That's our job. Our message during this summit will be pretty simple and direct, but yet powerful. We're ready. We're ready to lead the future economy of this country, and it is going to go through Hispanic businesses. We're here to collaborate. We want to be good partners, not just with corporate America, but also with government agencies to plan, create, and build an American economy, the strongest in the world, that continues to stay strong and stay number one, but it needs to serve us better. We need to leverage more capital for our businesses who have been undercapitalized. We need to build capacity for our firms and stronger self-esteem that if they don't get that first contract, they come back better prepared the next time. And we want to have better connections to one another for our cities and for our states. I heard someone said the other day that our net worth is our network. And we want to build that network with you and do it connected more so than ever before. One of the major lessons that we've learned the last 2 years, now that we're talking face to face, we realize we're more interconnected than we ever thought. So a business owner might not be Hispanic, but their tenant is Hispanic. They still need to pay that loan at the bank. They need that business to stay in business, even if they needed to extend a little bit of additional room for them to make the note on their lease. So our country cannot continue to be the largest economy without all of us working together. 63.5 million Hispanic Americans, according to the most recent census. And yes, at least 5%, even with that number, were undercounted. And in keeping with global events, although we're an ocean apart. As the United States of America, we cannot ignore the pain and suffering that families and innocent citizens are experiencing, not just with the war inflicted by Russia on the democratic nation of Ukraine, but across the world. Our quality of life and our economic systems depend on a peaceful global environment that embraces commerce, the free enterprise system, competition, and we need to believe that respecting one another is important and it needs to be earned. So I'm proud to say that the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce has joined with more than 50 national business leaders, organizations, and companies in a statement, and we ask you to join us in condemning the unjustified invasion of the Ukraine by Russia as we stand united in the fight for democracy and freedom everywhere. Please give yourself a round of applause for that vision. And at this time, I ask you if you could join me in taking a brief symbolic moment of silence in solidarity as we condemn these actions of war and we celebrate the spirit of resistance and invincibility, not just the people of the Ukraine, but even us Americans that have been impacted economically through the impact that is direct and indirect. So if you could join me in a moment of silence for a few seconds. Thank you. So it's the first time we meet in 3 years. And as we reflect on everything that's happened, I want to quote Winston Churchill, who said, when you're going through hell, keep going. We're going to keep going. We're going to get through this together. And that's why we are meeting in Washington the first time in 3 years. This legislative summit is a way of building that momentum. And it's a good time for each of us to see each other again, celebrate our ability to achieve the American dream, el sueño americano, el sueño que nosotros criamos, the dream that we helped create starting 500 years ago is the strongest economy in the world. In spite of the historic challenges our communities of color, Hispanic, and of course other inequities, and at times, yes, the unexplained resistance to all of us having our rightful place in the American society is in fact dependent on all of us. Our future to depend on a global economy that's prosperous and wealthy and entrepreneurially supported. Our Hispanic community needs to be respected and needs to be invested in through capital, connections, contracts, and capacity. The most recent February jobs report counted over 678,000 new jobs, with 2021 being the strongest year economically in job creation with 6.4 million new jobs. Give yourself a round of applause. You all made that happen. And if 2020 was the year of lockdown and 2021 was the year of reopening, 2022, this is the year of renewal, growth, and expansion. Technology is our friend now. Humility is not a virtue. El que no habla, Dios no lo oye. If we don't speak up, God will not hear us. The mission of the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce is to promote the growth, development, and interest of the more than 5 million Hispanic-owned businesses in this country, contributing more than $800 billion to the American economy every year. When Hispanic businesses succeed, jobs are created. The economy goes stronger. We have better goods and services. There's more efficiency, more competition, and we are more competitive globally. After all, we do think globally because many of us speak more than one language, and we have that perspective, not an insular one. And as a nation, we must continue to expand capital, education, and procurement opportunities to unleash the true potential of our $2.8 trillion Latino gross domestic product, an economy larger than the nation of India with 1.3 billion people. These 62.5 million Latinos will be 100 million by the year 2040. 1 out of every 4 people in America out of an economy and a nation driven with 400 million people by 2040. Half of that growth will be Latinos. Our vision as a leading voice in advancing America's Hispanic business
No,
potential
awesome.
is
No,
to
thank
drive
you.
our U.S. economy upward and forward. And all that happens right here this week through you at the 2022 Legislative Summit with you, our 260 Hispanic chambers from around the country. Each of them is an economic oasis in their communities. Each of them, according to Susana Marino, was an emergency room for small businesses. You all brought us to where we are today. Let's give it up for our CEOs of the Hispanic chambers from around the country for their resiliency. Gracias. I'm glad to report that this summit has already broken records even before the pandemic. We have more than 600 business leaders registered from across the nation for this conference. Thank you very much. Another round of applause for yourself. So, last night we presented at Union Station the Advocacy Champion Award to the Secretary of the U.S. Department of Interior, our great board member and great leader of the Albuquerque Hispano Chamber of Commerce, Ernie C. de Vaca, gave that award to Deb Holland, herself a history-making champion for the Latino business community. Thank you, Ernie. And our reception was started by Angela Franco and Nicole Quiroga, two of the most important business leaders in Washington, D.C., of the two largest chambers, both of them Latinas. The importance of capital, capacity, and connections will be our focus over the next 2 days to expand those doors of opportunity for all of us. Soon the day will come, because it will be required by this nation, the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce will be the most important provider of small business services in America. That's our vision. And working with government leaders and the private sector, I want to thank each of you for your presence today. This summit will assure our board and our staff that we're in this together. We have each other's backs. Personally, I'm very grateful to each of you for trusting us and for spreading the good word about our programs and services. We want to earn your loyalty and we want to earn your confianza, your confidence. We'll continue to provide transparency in everything that we do, set the example of good governance, set best practices, and to always make you proud. Those are the times that we live in. It demands this type of accountability from each other. We want you to know the reasoning behind our decisions. They need to be fundamental and practical. I'd like to take a moment of personal privilege to thank many people in this room who made today possible. Thank you to our United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. If they could stand. Thank you all for your leadership. Gracias. They keep me in line, folks. Thank you to our staff and our interns. Let's give them a round of applause. Muchísimas gracias. They're running around all over the place. Thank you to Lisa Bombin with Unico Communications, a Latino-owned firm that's putting this production together. Thank you, Lisa. And last but not least, let's thank our neighbors, our friends, the people serving our meal today, our hospitality workers who have worked so hard. Thank you. Muchísimas gracias. And now, it is my distinct honor and privilege to introduce our chairwoman of the board, a tremendous business leader. She's fearless, she's honest, and she's inspiring, and she's been an outstanding chairwoman of our board of directors. Please join me in welcoming to the stage our chairwoman, Alice Rodriguez.
Good morning, buenos dias. I want to start off with a big thank you to that man who just exited the stage, Ramiro Cavazos. Really want to thank him for his leadership, for his integrity, for his work ethic, and the entire staff for putting on a tremendous event. I know this is the kickoff, but I will guarantee you this is going to be very worthwhile. How about a big round of applause for Ramiro? I also want to thank all of you in this room, whether you are a corporate partner, a chamber president, an HBE, you know, you're here to learn more about the USHCC, et cetera. Like, I recognize there's a lot going on in this world, right? We've got challenges with supply chain, we've got inflation, we've got the terrible war, et cetera, et cetera. And the fact that you're here means that you really understand the potential, you understand the pain points, and you want to collaborate together for us to find solutions. And I really, really want to applaud you for that, because that's very, very critical. You know, we like to talk about a lot of the stats, and Ramiro hit on a couple of them. If you look at the actual growth of small businesses in the last 10 years, Latino-owned businesses grew 34%. And that compared to the 1% of non-Latinos. You know, yesterday, McKinsey was giving us an update, and they said 1 out of every 200 businesses that are being formed every month are being formed by Latinos and Latinas. Think about that. Let that soak in a little bit. We have the highest labor participation. I can go on and on with the things that you say, like, wow, that's a lot of potential. But there also is a lot of like challenges and opportunities that we really need to stay focused on. So if you look at 2019 Federal Reserve data, you look at just median net worth in this country, the median net worth for a white household was $188,000. For a Latino household, that number was $36,000. And for a black household, that number was $24,000. So there is a lot of opportunity, and although we have a lot of good things going for us, we have got to peel back that onion and really focus in on those things that are going to help us raise that, you know, wealth potential for the Latino community. And that's why, as Ramiro said at the USHCC, our vision is for us to be the leading voice on how do we advance that Hispanic business potential. We're going to do that through what Ramiro said, the 3 C's, and we're trying to stay very strategic about that. The first is capital. We recognize that, but it has to be equitable capital, and it has to be through both innovative and traditional partnerships. So we stay very focused on engaging with the right people at the government level as well as in the private sector. The second is really capacity building. So every one of you chamber presidents that are here, like, how about a little wave here? Okay, you guys, thank you. You guys are so important to this ecosystem. You are on the ground, you understand what's really going on. And I always think about this even in my own job at JP Morgan, like, you got people at the center and you got people on the ground. And if you do not pay attention to the people on the ground, you're gonna miss it. You're just gonna miss it. And so everything we do from a capacity building perspective is all about programming, training, grants. And that's where you guys play such an important role. And then finally, the connections is obviously procurement opportunities, it's matchmaking, it's making sure we're bringing the right people together. So I want to just do a real quick highlight on our corporate partners, because all of you are really important, including my own employer, JP Morgan Chase. Back in August of 2020, we announced a $30 billion commitment to advance racial equity. Of that $30 billion, $2 billion was specifically for Latino and Black-owned businesses. Like, how can we lend more? And so as a result, we've created a lot of new resources at the bank, including a new position that is a senior business consultant whose role is just to mentor small businesses. That's it. Helping them with cash flow, helping them with operational efficiencies, helping them with access to capital, et cetera, et cetera. And then one highlight that I want to really give here is, you know, because I think that there's just so much to creating that ecosystem and amplifying, not just with JP Morgan, but other corporations. And a good example is JP Morgan with ODP. ODP has the Office Max, the Office Depot, and the USHCC all coming together to create a program where we'll have digital training available to small businesses across the country. And, in very specific cities like, Dallas and, Chicago, Detroit, Fort Worth, Houston, Minneapolis, Phoenix, these are all cities that we're really focused on with boots on the ground. So I want to close with, that is an example and the power when we collaborate together that we could bring to close this gap. So I just want to invite all of my, corporate partners as we think about the things that you're doing in your own organization. How can we work together with the USHC to really amplify these efforts? So with that, thank you again for being here, and I look forward to the next 2 days on our collaboration. Thank you.
The coronavirus pandemic took a heavy toll on our community, leaving many people without jobs. Businesses and families struggled financially during already difficult times. As part of our community commitment, Telemundo responded and took action. On April 1st, 2020, together with the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, we launched Nuestros Negocios, a nationwide campaign with a simple mission: to help Hispanic-owned small businesses overcome this unprecedented crisis caused by the pandemic.
¿Qué es lo que primero nos recomiendas?
Our integrated campaign leveraged Telemundo's multi-platform portfolio to reach our community across every touchpoint through innovative content experiences.
Necesitamos proteger el negocio.
We connected businesses with experts, offered dedicated news, articles, and digital resources, and provided our platforms and programs to help promote their services for them to remain in business. The engagement received solidified the true need for Spanish-language information and advice within our Hispanic small business community. Since launch, Nuestros Negocios content has received nearly 4 million views across Telemundo's social and digital platforms, with our live expert webinars making up 1.5 million of those views. Additionally, Nuestros Negocios has provided bilingual technical assistance to more than 11,000 small business owners and has connected more than 1,000 businesses to forgivable loans. As the leading Spanish-language network in the U.S., we are proud to stand with the 4.7 million Hispanic businesses as they emerge from the pandemic. They are the economic future of America and continue to show that together, we are unstoppable.
Welcome, representing our platinum sponsor, the Executive Director for External Affairs at Comcast, NBC Universal, and USHCC Chair of the Government Affairs Committee, Ms. Jacqueline Puente.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here on behalf of all of my wonderful colleagues and friends at Comcast, NBC Universal, and Telemundo. And it's an honor to serve on the USHCC board and chair the Government Affairs Committee. As the resident director in Washington, D.C., I'm also so happy to welcome everyone back to Washington, D.C. after 2 years. It's wonderful to see you all here, and we're so happy you're here to see the cherry blossoms and have an allergy attack like I am right now. After 20-something years, I'm still deathly allergic to cherry blossoms and avoid it like the plague. Over the last 2 years, we've seen how chambers and businesses have been leading and helping their communities at ground zero. I'm so proud of the real results from the chambers in this room, the lessons learned, and the policy takeaways that we've been able to apply in our advocacy. It means so much for me to see 112 chamber presidents come to Washington to talk with policymakers about real issues impacting their communities, impacting their family businesses, impacting their growth strategies. And so I'm so thrilled that we have 2 days here to take our work, our lessons learned, our results, and present them to the people making policy decisions on Capitol Hill. To that end, I want to make a plug here for our policy platform, which Ramiro, Leroy, the entire USHCC staff have worked so hard to pull together. You know, I think many people come to Washington, D.C., and they have the opportunity to talk to a senator or a congressperson or somebody in the administration, and they say, what am I going to say? What am I going to talk about when I get in that room? You know, I have my personal stories, but how do I lay this out in the D.C. speak, right? We're known for this Beltway bubble. How do we talk about the issues that are impacting us? And so our 2022 policy platform, which is available online, is a fantastic guide, It's the talking points, industry-specific, sector-specific, issue-specific, that can help guide those conversations and really help bring your real-world experience to the policymakers who need to hear from you critically. So with that, I don't want to get in the way of great networking, of important advocacy. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for coming back to Washington, D.C., and I look forward to seeing you over the next 2 days. Have a great morning.
You probably think Visa is a credit card company, huh? But it's actually a network, connecting just about everyone to just about everyone else. It can open eyes with a cup of coffee and change minds about what makes a business a business. And it is working to connect everyone, everywhere. So, meet Visa, a network working for everyone.
He started as a part-time employee at American Airlines in 1994. Now, 28 years later, he serves the country's largest international hub and gateway to the Americas as Vice President of Miami, Caribbean, and Latin America operations. Please help us welcome proud USHCC board member Juan Carlos Liscano.
Buenos días y buen provecho, right? Look, as Miami's hometown airline, in a community that is really defined by its diversity, in fact, a community that is the gateway to the Caribbean and Latin America, we understand the importance of supporting and elevating minority and Hispanic-owned businesses, which are the backbone of our economy and an important, and some of us in this room may say, the most important economic engine in our country. So during this morning's fireside chat, America's Business Future, we're going to hear from USACC's amazing president and CEO, Ramiro Cavazos, and White House Senior Advisor for Infrastructure Implementation, and an incredible friend to the Latino community, Ryan Burney. So on behalf of my fellow USACC board members, please join me in welcoming Mr. Burney and our president and CEO, Ramiro Cavazos.
How you doing? Great. Great to be here. It's great to be here in person.
You know, they call these fireside chats, Ryan, in Washington, D.C. In the Southwest, we call them carne asada chats.
Yeah, maybe like gumbo pot, melting pot chats, I guess, in South Louisiana.
Did you bring any oysters with you?
Yeah, I could give you a few.
Well, Ryan, we're so glad to talk to you about the infrastructure bill. It's a lot of money, $1.2 trillion. A
lot of money. Couldn't count that high before we started this job.
But we were talking backstage, and Ryan and I were saying that, you know, we really wish Mitch Landrieu was here, who obviously is leading the infrastructure implementation of the bipartisan infrastructure bill. And I had the opportunity to represent our membership at the signing at the White House a few months ago. But as I was talking to Ryan, I realized that you know, he's very well connected. He was the deputy mayor of New Orleans when Mitch Landrieu was mayor. So let's give him a round of applause, because he was the implementer of initiatives and policies. So again, buenos dias to everyone. We're going to have about 10 or 15 minutes. We want to kind of peel the onion away, as Alice said, to the infrastructure bill. And $1.2 trillion, the largest investment Congress has made in the future of our country. Charging stations, and I mean, we could go on and on about what's in here. And so you're the former deputy mayor and economic development leader for New Orleans, and obviously you and your boss, Mitch, are leading this effort. You know, what do you, can you give us the overall impact on America that this infrastructure bill will have, just to put it in perspective, Ryan?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, one, thank you to the Chamber for your advocacy on behalf of the bill. because businesses like all of you here that we actually have this once-in-a-generation opportunity. As you mentioned, it's $1.2 trillion, 375 programs, 125 of which are new. It's really wide-ranging. We talk a lot about the largest investment in infrastructure since the Eisenhower administration, but that was really kind of narrowly focused on roads and bridges, highways. This bill touches water, high-speed internet, legacy pollution cleanup, which disproportionately impacts Hispanic communities. Of course, roads and bridges and transit and rail, et cetera. So it's any investment in any one of those sectors would be the largest in modern American history for that sector, and we put it all in one bill. So what we've tried to do is really think about how do we work across the interagency, all the cabinet secretaries, all the agencies, to make sure that we're delivering as much impact as possible by breaking down the barriers, the silos that could happen when you have a bill this big and that's this complex. And so, the impacts are going to be cleaner air, clean water for communities, affordable high-speed internet for every American household, a safer commute to work or to pick up your kids, better roads. And it's unlike most of the other bills that we've talked about in Washington the last decade, the Recovery Act from President Obama, or even the Rescue Plan last year. Those were intended to be short-term, big stimulus into the economy. Let's get the money to the ground as quickly as possible, make big of impact for a short term. We view this as a really transformational piece of legislation that will invest in the next 5 to 7 to 10 years of infrastructure. And so I think as you all are organizing, think about not only the immediate short term, how do you get ready today, but how do you use this opportunity to create generational wealth and investment opportunities over the next 5, 7, 10 years. And I think that will be the real impact of this bill long term.
And thank you, Ryan. And obviously our Latino community across the country, a lot of our community leaders live in rural areas, live in neighborhoods that some of our businesses are breathing life into in the inner city, but have aging infrastructure or parts of the city that have not been invested in for, as you said, for many, many years. This once-in-a-lifetime opportunity is historic for our nation. It is a bipartisan bill. How would you describe the bill and the programs? How is it going to fill those gaps for rural communities, communities that historically have been overlooked and lack of investment?
So great question, and I think it's one of the president's primary priorities here, is that this bill reaches all parts of America, particularly rural communities, underserved communities that have been left behind. One of the things that happens in Washington, y'all are all here, but probably a lot of you do have lobbyists, so I'm not demeaning lobbyists, but you shouldn't have to have a lobbyist to access your government and to access these dollars, right? And so one of the things that we view our role as the infrastructure team as doing is providing as much resources, information about what's in the bill and how to access it as possible. And then also pointing out, particularly to rural, underserved communities, historically disadvantaged communities, how the bill and specific programs will benefit them. For example, in the bill, there are about a third of the programs that I mentioned, of the 375, have specific set-asides, carve-outs, or 100% federal match, which is, means that the federal government is going to pay the 100% of the cost of the project for rural, disadvantaged, or underserved communities. There are dozens of programs that offer specific technical assistance for rural, disadvantaged communities. We're actually going to be next month going focusing on a rural tour, but really packaging a rural playbook that says, if you're a rural community, here are all the programs that specifically fit you. Because it's hard to imagine going through 2,000 pages of a bill, whether you have a lobbyist or not. That's a tough task. One of the things we did is we put something at build.gov, build.gov, if you haven't checked it out. And we put a guidebook on there that basically is 400 pages, so a little bit shorter. It's light reading. We put it in like kindergarten language as much as we can so that it's easy for people to understand, which is basically what the program is, who's eligible to apply, how much, when that's going to happen, and who would be, what's the process to apply for every program in the bill. And that's kind of the first time that's ever happened. It'll include the links for applications once you're there. So if you haven't gone to build.gov, please do check it out. It's just one of the many tools that we believe are important to make sure that everyone has access to the information in this bill.
Thank you, Ryan. As we go to the next question, I was thinking, and I asked the next question for JC with American Airlines, who just introduced us. What's the runway of implementation for all of these projects? Is it 3 years, 5 years, 7 years? Will we see this be implemented? I know it needs a 100% match in some cases. What do you estimate would be the time frame of these projects being completed?
Yeah, so I think important, two different ways the money is primarily delivered in this bill. One is through formulas to states for existing programs. So as I mentioned, about 250 of the programs are existing. A lot of them are formula dollars. Washington has a formula on highway funding or on bridge funding that goes to states. States then either directly contract that work out or they work with local governments to contract it out. The same is true on orphan well capping or even the electric vehicle charging system will be the same way where there's a formula allocation to states. A third of the program, or 35%, is actually going to be competitive. And so those, you hear things called NOFOs, Notices of Funding Opportunity, RFIs, RFPs, all those things. That is mostly going to be competitive for state, local governments, tribal communities, and the territories. And so, and then 5% is direct spend. So we spend a lot of time talking about federal procurement, as we should, because it's the largest purchaser of goods and services in the nation. But on this bill, only 5% of the spend is actually going to happen at the federal government. Most of it, 90%, is going to happen at state and local governments. And so on the formula funding, that money for the fiscal year 2022 is already flowing out the door, and states are already planning on road and bridge projects, lead pipe removal, water projects that you should start to see, this summer, late the spring, summer, and fall. On the competitive programs, the new ones are taking a little bit time to build. We've been here about 120 days since you were at that awesome signing ceremony. We've got $100 billion that are announced and out. $50 billion are announced through notices of funding opportunities. So there are opportunities for states and local governments to apply right now. That's stuff like the RAISE program, which is a transportation infrastructure program in communities. It's the Port Infrastructure Development Program, which is the single largest investment in ports in the country. It goes on and on. So we have about a couple dozen of those programs have already started the RFI NOFO process and going out, and those awards will happen, from the government out this summer and early part of this fall, which means then the procurement opportunities will follow thereafter. One of the things that's important, I think, for everybody here to know is we kind of have four big lenses that we are putting or the president's values across the bill and across the implementation of the bill, particularly the competitive programs. One is that the projects and the programs create good paying union jobs where union is not available and practical, that is prevailing wage, and that we have a diverse workforce component. Two, that we use the power of this bill to reinvest in American domestic manufacturing and bring back domestic manufacturing opportunities for local businesses. We have to have an industrial policy in this country. We can't sit through the last 2 years of COVID or the supply chain issues that we've all had and not use this opportunity as we're going to rebuild America to make sure that American companies are part of that rebuilding. Three, obviously everything should be done with climate, sustainability, resilience in mind. obviously, particularly probably Latino communities all across the country are facing the grave, dire effects of climate change, this existential threat. How do we make sure that when we rebuild this infrastructure, it's stronger and can last a longer time? And then 4 is equity. And how do we make sure that equity is embedded not only in the whole of government, but the whole of implementation of this bill? Obviously, procurement contracting is part of that, but also in the design of the programs, making sure that there's an equitable distribution of funds, both in geography and in where we spend the money, the communities that are impacted. It's racial, it's ethnic, it's geographic. And so equity is a very important part of this bill. And so all of those things will be considered as the competitive programs go out.
So Ryan, you mentioned procurement. We have 5 million Hispanic-owned businesses in America. If I have a great banking relationships with Bank of America, Wells Fargo, JP Morgan Chase, I've got access to capital. I've got 5 years of experience doing work for my local government or the private sector, struggling with the obvious challenges of COVID and just in general the inequities of procurement history in this nation. If we look at federal contracting, the largest buying service in the world is the U.S. government. There's no comparison. And yet, only 1% of federal procurement is going to small, minority, and women-owned businesses.
Yep.
We want more business. Our chamber leaders have members who want more business through this $1.2 trillion, not just for the sake of the business, but we want to be we want to be at the table. What would you recommend to our chambers, to us at the U.S. Hispanic Chamber? How can we position and leverage contracting, procurement, supplier diversity opportunities if I have the capacity and the connections and the capital to get going? What would you I know you're across the street from my office.
Yeah, no, we'll
so
be on speed dial.
Okay,
you have my number now. It's all good.
We really would love to be a part of that solution.
Yeah, no, I think, one, we will only be successful if you are a part of that solution. So I think we know that is the power of this bill. The opportunity we have here is making sure that there is the people of America are the ones that help rebuild America. I see my great friend, Myra Pineda from the Louisiana Hispanic Chamber here. We worked together when Mitch was mayor of New Orleans and to really supercharge the disadvantaged business program. We went to 35% and met it on the rebuilding of the city after Katrina.
Right.
So understand the importance, understand the know-how to how to do it. Federal government's a little bit different. The president has made a goal to make a 50% increase in the goal,
right.
So going from 10 to 15%. And one of the things we're really doing is trying to figure out how to practically make that work across all the different agencies. So that's one of the things that we're trying to do is coordinate across all the agencies who all have different programs that they run and all different metrics so that it's kind of more standardized process for outreach. I think for one, if you're a business, I think build.gov is an important tool for you as well, because you can see when programs are being let, when money is going to eventually flow, and the types of sectors that are out there. Again, I think the other thing here is the breadth and depth of this bill is really unprecedented, and there are going to be entire new sectors that are spun up out of this opportunity, particularly with the Made in America component, domestic manufacturing component. We talked earlier, EV chargers, right? All of those component parts have to be built and supplied here in America. You talk about wind turbines on the clean energy side. You talk about battery manufacturing on electric vehicles. You talk about, literally, all of the component parts of anything that is going to be built with this bill there should be a domestic manufacturing component. And so I think in addition to the just standard procurement stuff that we talk about so often, there's a great opportunity for folks who are well-positioned to really create entire new levels of generational wealth in the Latino community, particularly from this bill in the clean energy space. So I think we look forward to working with you. We look forward to figuring out ways that we can partner together to get information out. And our goal is to make this big bill as accessible as possible to you, that's the President's commitment, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Ryan. We're very thankful to you. Yes, let's give him a round of applause. Well, we're as we wrap up, I just want to thank you for your service. I know we have great administration officials with us today, Secretary Alejandra Castillo and Director Miguel Estienne, and of course, Secretary Buttigieg. And I want to thank you for representing really this historic bill that has bipartisan support. Ryan, we look forward to working with you and connecting with you. And as we wrap up, I just want to thank you for coming over, give our best to Mitch, Mayor Landrieu, and tell him we look forward to meeting with him soon and working with our local community. Let's give Ryan a round of applause. Thank you.
His professional story spans the industry of financial services, having coordinated multi-billion-dollar transactions and participated in financial programs in Tokyo, Budapest, Mexico City, and across the U.S. Here to speak about technical assistance for the revitalization of small and minority-owned businesses and access to capital, please welcome Acting National Director appointed by President Biden for the Minority Business Development Agency, Mr. Miguel Estienne.
Good morning. Buenos dias. It is a great pleasure to be here this morning. I want to thank the Chamber, and in particular our partner and friend, Ramiro Cavazos, for inviting me to share with you and this amazing group some thoughts about the MBDA and the administration. I'm pleased to also share the stage this morning. Understand SB Administrator Guzman and Assistant Secretary Castillo are part of this program, two of the strongest partners that you all have in the Hispanic community in this administration, and ones that we work very closely with as we advance the business agenda for this community. What a great theme to kick off this summit, America's business future. As our nation continues to benefit from the contributions of this community, there is a growing recognition that America's success is linked to Hispanic success. Under the Biden administration, 6.6 million new jobs were added the first year. Unemployment is approaching its lowest level in 50 years, and still, there are over 11 million jobs employers are attempting to fill. The headline is that thanks to the Hispanic businesses, America's future is even brighter. Let me tell you why. Nearly 15% of all businesses in the United States are Hispanic-owned. You all know that statistics. Not only do Hispanic-owned businesses occupy dominant positions in construction, food services, hospitality, professional services, but according to a study by Stanford University, Hispanic-owned businesses are the fastest-growing segment within the American economy, with 50% of all businesses created between 2007 and 2017 being Latino-owned, 50%. Today, 4.7 million Hispanic-owned businesses employ 1.2 million workers, infusing nearly $150 billion to the U.S. economy. Those are real contributions. These figures fill me with pride, because as a former entrepreneur myself, I know these figures carry a story that goes beyond economics. Our grandparents, los abuelos, they came to this country leaving everything behind to give us freedom, education, and prosperity. And while entrepreneurs are bringing prosperity to America, I can still hear Grandpa saying, "Son, the work is not yet done." The work is not yet done because even though this community has proven its worth by adding $150 billion to the U.S. economy, economic parity is not a reality yet. The work is not yet done because less than 1% of the capital from the largest VC and private equity firms land on the hands of Latino entrepreneurs. The work is not yet done because if we were to close the parity gap that exists between Latino-owned and white-owned businesses, Latino entrepreneurs could generate $1.4 trillion in additional revenue. In honor to the grandpas, los abuelos, and the prosperity that America deserves, it is time to double down on this community, and in the process, I want you all to know the Minority Business Development Agency will be a partner with you. The MBDA is the only federal agency charged with promoting and supporting minority-owned businesses in the U.S. And the Biden administration is fully committed to strengthening this agency. Last year, with the passage of the infrastructure bill, the Minority Business Development Act was enacted, replacing the core authority of the agency from a 50-year-old executive order and making the agency a permanent nature. The support of this chamber and many of you in this room made this historical law a reality, and I want to thank you all. And as you think through the enhanced authorities provided by the MBDA Act and the needs of this community, know that the agency is investing to enhance our support in matters of access to capital, government procurement, as you heard, and technical assistance in urban and rural communities. Our support to minority-owned businesses is primarily delivered through a national network of business centers where the MBDA partners with private organizations with subject matter expertise trusted by their communities. Individuals that know our community, speak our languages, and know what it takes to be successful in the business arena. We not only assist as Hispanic entrepreneurs in becoming prepared to compete for billions of dollars in government contracts or apply for lines of credit, we also serve as navigators for programs available across the government and as community builders, convening like-minded players willing and able to help you and succeed. As I close, I want to acknowledge that we are in this journey together. America's business future is bright. But as the United States becomes a majority-minority nation, it is essential that Hispanic entrepreneurs share in the business success fairly and equitable. It is time to honor Grandpa. Have a great conference, and know that the MBDA has your back. Thank you.
Previously serving as National Director of the Department of Commerce's Minority Business Development Agency during the Obama administration, she also has held numerous senior policy positions at the White House and International Trade Administration. At this time, we are pleased to welcome U.S. Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Economic Development, Ms. Alejandra Castillo.
Good morning. Okay, everyone has had their third cup of coffee, I presume. Fantastic. Muy buenos días. Para mí es siempre importante comenzar estos discursos con un poco de castellano para honrar nuestras abuelas que tanto nos inculcaron que tenemos que honrar nuestro idioma y nuestra cultura. Así que muy buenos días. So I have this clock right here that I have to stick to, because if not, I'm going to get the gong show type of thing. But I want to take a moment. First of all, this is family. Family, Carmen Castillo, thank you for your friendship and your guidance. A true trailblazer when it comes to business. We have in the room so many people. Michael Camuñez, an amazing individual who helped open the doors during the Obama administration, Assistant Secretary as well for the International Trade Administration. Michael is doing incredible stuff. Michael, thank you for your friendship as well. I also have Tony Tijerino, who's in the room, doing a lot of great things for young people. And I have to say, Tony knows a lot of secrets, so I keep him very close because he knows a lot of my secrets. But I also want to say, look, this is about family. Ying McGuire, congratulations for leading the NMSDC. You're at the helm. And, this morning I bumped into a very dear friend, Brian Hall, who keeps me grounded. And Brian and I worked together when I was at MBDA, and I want to leave this message, right? This is the message. We just went through a pandemic. We all know how painful it was. For those of us who love to be social, we were locked in our homes. Many of us lost loved ones. The country was challenged to its core. But here's what we're going to do, as they say in Spanish. No vamos a mirar para atrás ni para coger impulso. We're not going to look back. We're looking forward. And I have to invite you. I want to invite you and take this seriously. We are futurists. We are going to be designing and implementing and deploying capital across the country. Dollars to reimagine the infrastructure, not the infrastructure of the 1950s, which divided communities, right? How many of you have seen highways that divided east and west and north and south and Latinos from the others? This infrastructure bill has to unite us, and we have to reimagine what is possible. I usually say, if your dreams don't scare you, you are not dreaming big enough. So we want to wake up every day in cold sweats because we're dreaming big. But in order to dream big, we also have to think about how are we going to build infrastructure for our Latino community, for our Black and Brown community, for our Black and Brown and Indigenous and AAPI communities. It is about partnership and collaboration. Many of you may know the Department of Commerce. If you don't, we are 16 different agencies. You know the Census Bureau, which gives you all that great statistics. We are the International Trade Administration. We are MBDA. We are EDA. We are the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, so we need to help our Latino inventors protect their intellectual property. But Commerce is also NTIA, National Telecommunication and Information Agency, and they just received $48 billion for broadband. We need to make sure that broadband is in our communities because what we learned is that our Latino businesses could not pivot. They couldn't pivot into e-commerce. They didn't have either the digital presence or the know-how. At EDA, we do not invest directly into businesses, but we create the ecosystem. Everything from the water and the sewage and the downtown redevelopment and the broadband. When you think about the ecosystem that supports businesses, that's EDA. And I know that in this room we have some very important partners who are part of the Build Back Better Challenge. That challenge will provide grants, 20 to 30 grants across the country, up to $100 million. When I talk about reinventing, reimagining, transforming community, that is what EDA does. And I have to tell you, I am excited that in this administration we have Bibi Hidalgo, who you're going to hear from in a minute. We have Mark Madrid. We have Isabel Guzman leading SBA. But we have also Roberto Santos at Census. We have Marisa Lagos at International Trade. We have Latinos who care, who live for this. And I'm one of those. My mother said, "You're going back to government." And I said, yeah, this is the time to go back in. Because this is the time that together, in collaboration and partnership with government, private sector, we are going to transform our country. So I want to leave you with that. If I didn't give you a good enough challenge, see me afterwards. Happy to do that. But this is the time that we are going to reinvent what the U.S. is all about. And that is making sure that we journey together as communities. So thank you very much.
In her current role as Associate Administrator for Government Contracting and Business Development for the U.S. Small Business Administration, she oversees procurement-related policies for small business contractors hoping to acquire opportunities with government entities. Her leadership in working with various presidents has allowed for minority businesses to grow and Latinas to have high professional expectations. She is a true role model and champion for change. Friends and colleagues, help me welcome to the podium Ms. Vivi Hidalgo.
Buenos días. Thank you so much to the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for inviting me to speak at this year's Legislative Summit. A special thanks to Ramiro Cavazos, who is a great leader, a close partner of ours at SBA, and for his continued leadership at the Chamber. Thank you also to a wonderful person, Mr. Leroy Cavazos, for bringing us together this week to focus on the importance of Latino businesses in the federal marketplace. And of course, a shout out to the best current and future board chairs in the country, Alice Rodriguez and Nelson Ranieri. And my thanks to the USHCC board for having me here and the chamber leaders, and to all of the Latino entrepreneurs and innovators in the audience today. Thank you for taking that leap of faith into the unpredictable and challenging, but endlessly rewarding world of business ownership. You are in engineering, you are in biotechnology, son abogados y contadores. You're in IT, construction, and every industry that we as a nation depend on for our future and that our children are counting on us to deliver. I'm here today as the first woman appointed by the President to the Office of Government Contracting and Business Development at SBA. And I am also the first Latina. I'm here to highlight how you continue to pave the way to prosperity in America, creating meaningful, quality jobs by partnering with our federal agencies, and I'm proud to share how SBA is serving and investing in you in return. I would also be remiss not to say that I am so grateful and honored to have this opportunity to have shared the stage with Alejandra Castillo, Assistant Secretary, who I consider a mentor of mine. Like many of you, I am no stranger to the highs and the lows of running a small business. As is often the case for Latino entrepreneurs when faced with the glass ceilings of corporate America or of the government, many branch out to start their own business, where we can be the CEOs and the presidents, where we can be the ones innovating and driving our country towards success. For 6 years, my brother Patrick and I worked to do just that, connecting Fortune 500 companies with small, minority-owned businesses so that the large firms could stay on the cutting edge of innovation, and so that the small businesses could create jobs, generate wealth, and invest in your communities. It was during that time that I learned some of the same lessons that have brought many of the chamber leaders here today and many of the business owners. I learned just how challenging it can be to land a contract. I learned how difficult it is to make payroll and to forego health insurance when times are tough, and then to wait and wait for that first check to arrive. And with government contracting, landing your first contract can be an even greater challenge. But there is real power that comes with getting to say that the United States government is one of your clients. After all, it is the biggest buyer in the world, with more than $140 billion in small business contracting each year out of a $560 billion annual contracting budget. What other industrialized country in the world is able to say that? Although we haven't yet announced our fiscal year 2021 data, I am proud to say that last year, federal contracting with Latino-owned small businesses reached $10 billion for only the second time in history. President Biden and Administrator Isabela Casillas Guzman have placed a great deal of emphasis on breaking down historic barriers to opportunity, to deliver for brown, black, women, veteran, and other business owners who have historically been undervalued, underserved, and underrepresented. Because of this commitment to equity in procurement, SBA and my office was able to work very closely with the White House over this past year and OMB and our partner agencies to enact major policy changes for federal contracting to ensure that socially and economically disadvantaged firms have strong footing on which to compete in the federal marketplace. These changes improve on 5 key areas, and we're using the acronym ADAPT because 5 is a lot to remember sometimes. 1, access. SBA and the White House are now tracking new entrants to the federal marketplace to ensure that prospective government contractors have the opportunity to win contracts. 2, delivery. The government-wide small disadvantaged business goal, as Ryan just stated, will now increase to 15% by 2026, starting with an 11% goal for the first time in history this year, fiscal year 2022. That will add up to tens of billions of additional dollars for small businesses over the next 5 years. Accountability. All small business goals have now been added into the yearly performance evaluations for senior executive service officials in program offices overseeing contracting activities. Going back to what we implemented during the Obama administration, we have now brought that back to the table, and we're including all of the socioeconomic goals as well as the small business goal. And the playing field. Now, more than 30,000 socioeconomic firms are automatically enrolled in Tier 2 of category management, a very obscure term that any of you who are federal contractors are aware have a big impact on your ability to contract with the federal government. By putting the firms in Tier 2, contract officers are now incentivized to follow small business preferences rather than bundle contracts for large corporations. And finally, our biggest announcement, transparency. I like singing, I like talking with music. For the first time in history, you know what livens things up. For the first time in history, SBA has publicly released data on the percent of federal dollars that went to Latino, Black, Asian American, Native, and tribally owned small businesses. And we will continue to release this data on an annual basis. We have our work cut out for us. 1.78% of contracts are going to Latino-owned firms. If we're at $10 billion, imagine if we doubled that. So as Latino business owners, your entrepreneurial spirit is the driving force that will bring about a new set of circumstances for communities that have been left out of the boardroom for far too long. It's you who will influence not only what happens within your hometowns, but every town. Thank you for having me here today.
She is the recipient of the Leadership Award from the New Orleans Hispanic Heritage Foundation, the High Achievement in Compliance from Subway Corporation, is Saba Businesswoman of the Year. Let's give a round of applause for the President and CEO of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Louisiana, and USHCC Region 3 Board Member, Ms. Mayra Pineda.
Good morning and greetings from Louisiana. Welcome again to USHCC's 2022 Legislative Summit and America's Business Future Breakfast. It has already been an inspiring morning with firm indicators of the strong future of Hispanic businesses and how these represent the backbone of the economy and could realistically spur the recovery post-pandemic. However, the lessons from the last 2 years are clear, and the disparities that have disproportionately impacted our communities, including access barriers, must be addressed to build equitable communities. Local chambers throughout the nation have become critical in providing the technical assistance, resources, and tools in this effort. Collaborating with the agencies that provide these services and resources is vital. The role of the Small Business Administration is extremely important, and the work done during the pandemic has been commendable. It is my honor to introduce a good friend of USHC and the local chamber network. As a presidential appointee, he leads the Office of Entrepreneurial Development for the U.S. Small Business Administration. The OED supports more than 1 million small businesses annually and oversees the technical resources arm of the SBA, which includes this network of small business development centers, women business centers, SCORE, regional innovation clusters, and the Office of Entrepreneurship Education. Additionally, the OED supports the Office of Native American Affairs and oversees the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 $100 million Community Navigator Pilot Program. Let us welcome with a big round of applause the U.S. Small Business Administration Associate Administrator, Mark Madrid.
Wow, muchas gracias. Sí se pudo, ¿verdad? I mean, we are here. Think of where we were 2-3 years ago, and it is just my honor to be here on behalf of Administrator Isabela Casillas Guzman, Latina Associate Administrator and Cabinet Official. And it was so great to be there at the table with also mentor of mine, Alejandra Castillo and Bibi Hidalgo. So thank you all for this opportunity to be here. So many familiar friends. What we've been through, this is my 12th legislative summit. 12th, right? And this is the ultimate convergence of good, because there's people who've been here for that time, people that were here before, who we stand on their shoulders. There's been pivots, there's been people who left and came back, and equally important, there's new faces and friends. That's gonna be the secret sauce that keeps us going. So I'm here very quickly with 3 key points: gratitude, gratitude, and gratitude. So I'll start with gratitude. It's grateful to all of you for the work that you're doing. I mean, everybody in this room, the USHC, the board and staff, of course, the chamber leaders on the ground. And can I give it up for hashtag Latina Power? Latina CEOs of the Hispanic Chambers of Commerce across the U.S. Thank you for being on the ground. I always say, and I feel the voice of Administrator Guzman, right, who charges us to be more customer-centric, technology-forward, advancing equity. But I've always said, let's fight a ground war, not an air war. If you fight an air war, you miss things on the ground, you miss terrain. You don't meet small businesses where they are, and that's exactly what you are doing today. I'm also excited that Administrator Guzman has a very important announcement tonight. I can't wait for her to join you all at the networking reception. Also, I am thrilled to be with a great team, and I have who I call my oxygen right over there, Shaylee Hallway, my senior advisor. Thank you, Shaylee, for all that you do. I think she deserves a round of applause. We are excited to lead the Community Navigator Pilot Program. It was a $100 million program born out of the American Rescue Plan of 2021 to meet small businesses where they are. We have a new ecosystem of need when it comes to our small businesses across the U.S., Puerto Rico, and U.S. territories. The ecosystem of need is as follows: 3 parts. 1, those businesses that were coming to us in the first place. Number 2, those businesses that came to pandemic resourcing through no fault of their own, COVID-19. And those who did qualify, those who did not. We have to serve those members. And our 3rd ecosystem of need component, think about this. You know how entrepreneurial we are. In 2021, there was a record number of new business applications, a record by 1 million, and a great number of those were Latino and Latina entrepreneurs. So thank you, Latino and Latina entrepreneurs, for having that entrepreneurial spirit. And I close by thanking you all publicly. because there's a lot of work to be done. We're moving mountains. I can tell you about how the SBA super scaled from $40 billion in portfolio to over $1.2 trillion. I can go on about the programs that we're running, the great programs of GCBD. You heard from Bibi and all of our great units at the SBA, but you're going to hear more about that. But I want to close with a public thank you. I haven't had a chance to do this because we have all had stories of resilience and ganas and grit through the pandemic. And as you all know, I lost my dad to COVID-19. And you all stepped up to the plate. Every one of you. And I'll tell you a story that means so much to me. Is that when my dad, I knew that he was going. I was in California with a great team running LBAN. And anyhow, I got to Albuquerque and he passed away. So I was 30 minutes outside of Albuquerque. And the few calls that I made, besides close family and friends, were, of course, to LBAN, to board members, to the USHC, and a call for help to the Hispano Chamber of Albuquerque. I said, my dad just died, and I need to be on a webinar, and can I come over? Can I come over to your chamber? And they said, this is your home. And so when I got there, they had everything that you could imagine. They had a LED light. They had a conference room table. They had water. They were supporting me. Most importantly, they gave me a warm embrace. And then when I left, because they knew me well, they ordered about $80 of food because they knew I needed comfort. And I think I ate every bit of it. All that to say is I am honored on behalf of the agency and the Biden-Harris administration. President Biden says it best, building a better America includes building a better ecosystem for Latino and Latina entrepreneurs. I was with the First Lady just the other day in Denver at the White House Latino Economic Summit, and she said, Joe and I, we know that your voices have been historically unheard sometimes, and we hear you. And Administrator Guzman, she talks about it every day. We got to do more, we got to do more, and be actionable, results-driven, and outcomes-driven. So at this time, in closing, as it should be, I want to recognize the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for being a $5 million recipient of the Community Navigator Pilot Program, the program that I was mentioning a little while ago that is premised on a hub and spoke model, which means the spokes, the partner organizations, are connecting to small businesses on the ground. And at this time, I'd like to bring up the spokes that are part of this consortium to make this happen. I'd like to bring up to the stage the El Paso Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the Illinois Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the Colorado Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Hello Alice, and the Latino Business Action Network. Thank you, familia. It's so great to see you, and we'll see you again tonight.
Thank you to all our distinguished speakers during this morning's program. This concludes the America's Business Future Breakfast. Legislative Summit workshops will begin promptly at 10:15 a.m. in the Federal A and B, Senate, and South American meeting spaces. We look forward to seeing you back here for our second plenary, Building Back America Through Hispanic Business Luncheon. Hasta pronto!